Station 51, engine 27, engine 32, truck 105.
You're listening to The Fire Break with Steve Wolf. Welcome back to The Fire Break. I'm Steve Wolf. As you know, The Fire Break is sponsored by Team Wildfire. Check it out on the web at teamwildfire.com for some really neat innovation. I've got with us live today Don Hallett, all the way from our great neighbor to the north, who President Bush referred to as Canada. And Don is the founder of Wildfire Innovations. Don, welcome to the podcast. How are you today?
Hi, Steve. I'm doing great. How are you? And thank you for your interest. The emotional backing is welcomed and appreciated, and it's been immense.
Wonderful. So what are you working on? What are your big challenges up there? Are you developing a
Well,
technology or
I'm based in Calgary, but we do have people in the US also, and now in Europe. I've created a product we call Rainstream. Rainstream is basically a telescopic mast that can be rapidly deployed, hooked up to a trailer with an integrated unit that water can be pushed to it from a hydrant or a natural source, and they telescope up to currently 100 feet. I'm working on larger, and we use the wind as a favorable advantage for ember transplant. So we throw water a long distance above communities and tree canopies.
I didn't know they use feet in Canada still.
Pardon me?
I didn't know they still measure in feet in Canada.
I do. I measure them both.
You do.
So for people that don't understand the imperial, I guess that's 30 meters.
Yeah.
So our units right now, they propel up to 1,000 gallons a minute, but depends on the RPM of the engine, and we can scale that down. But the biggest thing is it's timed and targeted, and we can have cameras on top for security or monitoring fires, whatever else, and weather stations also.
I see. So you've got this mast, and I guess it's a nested mast.
Yeah, it's basically fastened to a trailer. Everything's engineered. It'll operate at a variety of heights, like say 30, 60, 80, and 100 feet. At 100 feet, the wind rating is 50 miles an hour, and as you come down, it goes up. So when we're down around 30 feet, it's good for around 100 miles an hour. And basically, it's just you tow it with a 1-ton dually truck or a little bit bigger. And it just, one guy can run it. 3 guys could set it up. I recommend 4 or 5 just for timing and speed. But basically 3 guys can deploy this in under half an hour.
Okay. So is it very similar in nature to what we think of as a rain tower in the film industry?
I guess it would be. I'm not familiar with rain towers, but I guess, well, it's a mast that goes up and you can operate it. This one you can operate at different heights.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's sealed along the way as it goes. And the idea is then that you're broadcasting droplets. There's a shearing device at the top to break the water up.
Yeah. It just sprays the water out. I found some of the challenges at the height was the rotation of the nozzle in the wind, and sometimes it would stop it. So I filed another patent and created something that can work in the wind, plus we can control the angle of trajectory too. So if we're coming around to throw into the wind, it can be dropped, or if we're going with the wind, we can raise it up. So yeah, basically it's just droplets, and then obviously the pressures depict the size of the droplet, micron, I guess they would call it.
Yes.
In simple terms, and how it would work into the wind or with the wind. So pressures can be adjusted.
Okay. And is pressure the main way you control your droplet size?
Yeah, that helps.
Okay.
And then obviously with the elevation, you need special pumps to get the water up that height.
Right.
But I found spraying from on the ground, then elevating it with my minimum viable product, that's what got me into going where I am today. And I've had 2 reports back now of people witnessing the misting a mile above a tree canopy. It depends on the wind too, right?
Right.
But let's say in a 10 to 12, 10 to 15 mile an hour wind, I mean, we can throw water like 700 feet. Obviously, the stronger the wind, the narrower the pattern, but the longer the length.
Right. As long as you're working with the wind, you're good then. So
Yeah,
are you using water immediately in advance of fires, or are you using it as a suppression medium, or are you
yeah, it's
pushing retardant through it in advance?
all of the above. I mean, it's good if you can pre-wet, even if there's lightning. Because it doesn't take long to set up, you can pre-wet an area, or prior to a fire, you pre-wet and then you turn it back on when you need again. And that's the reason I made it a quick deployment. Like, I really think once with the 4 or 5 man crew, once you're trained, we could set this up in 10 minutes. First you level it, and
Right.
then the mast goes up in like less than 2 minutes. We've done it in a minute 20 to full extension.
That's a pretty
So
good deployment.
it's pretty rapid, um, but it's timed and targeted. That's the focus.
Okay. And how
Put the
many,
water on when you need it most. Pardon me?
right, right. Synthetic rain.
Yeah. So back to your question, we can use just water. We have been approached by several companies that have gels in some sort of water enhancer where it will minimize evaporation. You use less water, and basically, which makes sense. You don't have to spray as long. Also,
Okay. So what type of additives do you use? And I'm not asking, specifically, but uh, generally, if it's called a chemical, people just have an adverse reaction to it.
yeah, I know. No, these are mostly environmentally safe because we don't want this to get into the aquatic life or plant life, so to speak. Um, they're basically just inhibitors, right? Fire inhibitors, or they enhance the water. Water enhancers is what I like to call them, but there's so many different terms. But I understand there's chemicals out there. They probably have the best effect against a fire, but there's pros and cons for everything out there.
Sure.
That's why, you might have a niche fit for one thing, but not so much for another. But one thing
Right.
I've come to realize with spraying is with some of my customers, they have stationary models and they love it for temperature reduction.
For
So that
sure.
tells me, the humidity's still in the air, keeps temperature down. Multi-purpose dust suppression, another one.
Sure. And how did you come to this? Did you come up through fire, or did you come from?
Yeah, so if I go back to, almost have to start in the middle, but it was between 8 years of 8 and 12 years old. I was evacuated from 2 wildfires growing up in the same town. And I remember I never saw my dad for over a week in the second fire. We had just come back from my grandparents. It was a Sunday night, and they lived a few hours away. And the next morning, I got up. My dad was obviously gone to work early in the morning, and ended up he was trapped on the other side of the fire. But I remember my mom running in to the bedroom, and I still remember the Hot Wheel I had in my hand at the time. And I was with my brother. We were playing Hot Wheels, and she comes in and throws a suitcase down, opens it, takes out what clothes were in there because they were dirty, and said, "Help your brother and throw some clothes from the dresser into here. We got to go. There's a fire coming." So my dad was trapped on the other side of this fire. We never saw him. Then when we finally saw him a week later, uh, he said, "We were lucky the first time we came back to a home. I can't guarantee for coming back to a home this time, but I can guarantee that we're going to be moving." And so basically, it chased us out of where we like to live in the forest, like a lot of other people, and in that town. And then I got coming back from a trip in South Dakota one summer with a friend, and we were on the east side of the Bighorn Pass. And then we saw this helicopter come and drop a bucket of water. And lo and behold, I got home a couple days later and this fire was on the news. So obviously we didn't stick around long, but this fire went to get more water and we waited about 40 minutes and nobody else had come back. And then, when we got home, that's what happened. So that got me to thinking and spending time on a farm growing up and learning to fix equipment with what was in the pile, because back then you didn't always have the part at the store. You didn't have the time to go to the store, or it could have been 3 weeks, 6 weeks, or next year by the time you got the part. So you had to make do with what was in the can of bolts or the scrap on the ground to get through the day and make hay when the sun shined. And then being a tradesman, coming up through the welding industry, doing structural steel, then mostly piping, you learn to make do with what's readily available because you're in the field, you're not near a store. Usually you plan ahead, but a lot of times customers will call you, this is what we have. They didn't want to spend more money. What can you make? So I kind of learned to innovate through all those experiences in life. And this just led me to the Rainstream. The first unit was basically a tree mount. So I have tree mounts also. And when the agency showed I was onto something, or they mentioned that, it just led to bigger and bigger. Because I knew I had to, fires are getting bigger as the years go on and resources are doing the best they can. We're running out of resources. So I'm just trying to bring another tool to the toolbox to help everybody out as a whole team, right?
Yeah.
Just like,
So what's the sweet spot for this equipment in the toolbox? Like, where would you apply this versus another tool?
well, community, but I think our difference is we're above the ground and we're below the air and we can time and target. Like if we need to move this thing from one place to another, we can travel at highway speeds. I mean, if you have a roadway or an area that's, got a little bit big enough footprint, we can deploy it. Like we need about 30 by 60 feet max to deploy this thing. And if you can get the water to it, which is something else I'm working on, I mean, you can use it anywhere, but our focus is community protection.
I see.
And because of all the devastation and cost of insurance, some people can't even get insurance, as you're aware. And if we can help everybody out as a whole, then, doing what we're here to do.
Yeah. Have you ever deployed on the run, tow it behind a tanker or a water truck and spray and
Well,
spray
we
while
don't
you're
tow
moving?
it. No, we don't tow it on the move. We just got the prototype done a little over a year ago, so all of last year was basically demoing and trialing it, getting any bugs out of it. So Gen 2's now pretty much designed, but we were impressed with what it did do with some of the demos we did hold. So this year's now we're looking at community protection. So there's a lot of people interested in talking to us.
Yeah. And as you get to the very top piece where the diffusion head is,
Yeah.
what's your pipe diameter up there?
Well, we feed it the big unit with a 4-inch line. And then I think our exit nozzle it's under 2 inches, inch and a half. We can change the nozzle in the matter of seconds. Just take the nozzle off, put the nozzle on.
Yeah.
So, you can go anywhere from basically decimals, 3 inches, half an inch up to, inch and 3/4.
Oh, that's pumping a lot of water.
So, yeah, so that changes the water volume, but it also changes the pressure. So let's say if you're not getting enough pressure out of a specific nozzle, depending on the pump that you have on your unit, then you drop your nozzle size, really, if you want to increase the pressure. But if you want to fight the wind, it's the less pressure is better because of the droplet size.
Bigger droplets.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's the do you find like your biggest challenge is the tech innovation or the adoption side?
I think it's the adoption side, not so much the tech. Um, it's getting people to buy into it. Some people are reluctant to change, so I would say the adoption side.
Yeah. So
But I
what
know that everybody that saw this or a video, they're blown away of what it does. It's the first one in the world that, you can tow it behind a truck and move it quickly and set it up.
yeah. It sounds like you could convert news trucks that have the telescopic masts on them. Just feed your hose up on the side of that.
Yeah, basically, like I designed it, like I mentioned, you hook it up to a hydrant or any line that supplies the water natural from a natural source, and then the
So
pump does the rest.
and off it goes. So what are your strategies, as an innovator on the adoption side? Because most people who look at new fire tech or have developed fire tech say like inventing and building and prototyping the product was the easy part. Changing people's
Yeah,
minds about how they do things is the hard part. How do
the
you tackle
biggest
that?
thing, I guess, it's like any product that somebody wants to bring into uh, the world, no matter what market it is. You do your research first, so you get an understanding of what you're getting into, and then you look at what's out there, and if you can make yours a little different and has some more pros than cons, then you're on the right track, I guess, to answer your question.
All right.
So
So, you know,
understanding what you're doing is one thing. Like, I'm no fire professional, but I know a Class A fire water will extinguish it. If you get into petroleum, then you got to change your ways, right?
yeah.
So
So who are you looking at for your market? Are you looking at consumer, industrial, HOAs, fire departments? Who are you hoping are going to be your early adopters?
the target is obviously fire departments, uh, because they're responsible for municipal protection. Um, some of them I've found they're obviously very familiar with house fires and building fires and internal and different classes, A, B, C, whatever it may be. But I've come to learn that some of them, they don't have wildfire knowledge, I guess. They understand what a wildfire is, but I don't think they understand how big the threat actually is. And we're seeing what's happening today. So to be able to provide them the knowledge or get them to understand, like, I know they do see the damage on TV and such, but uh, you see how hard these guys work when they fight a fire and the risk that they're in, and they have to go reload and how big of an area they can cover. So I guess that's why I continued doing what I was doing, because one of our units would do up to 18 acres in
Right.
pretty much minimal wind, right? There's not a lot out there that'll cover that. That's a lot of fire trucks to cover 18 acres.
Yeah, unless they've got an awful lot of time on their hands. So, so if you're covering 18 acres from a single point.
Yeah, even more or less. Depends on the wind, right? So
Right, of
that's
course.
from one placement. And then if you can tear this thing down, well, we can take this thing down in like 15 minutes and move it, depending on how far you want to move or that you have to move. You can be set up basically within the next hour. And the nice thing about it is we can hook these up in a linear fashion. So we can basically create a wall of water,
I
and
see.
you time and target it. So you pre-spray for a few minutes.
Right.
You get it damp enough or wet enough and then when the embers do start coming, you turn it on again.
Okay. So you're kind of destroying the ember bed for the fire.
Yeah, pretty much resourceful. Like we know that detection is great. I mean, that's awesome. Because all we had really before was aircraft, and it reminded me when I saw that helicopter of watching a Western movie where some guy runs into the saloon. Hey, the stable's on fire. So everybody runs to grab a pail of water so their four-legged cars don't die in the fire. And if they got on it fast enough, then they could control the fire. But like the aircraft, they're doing what they can, and the risks that they go through to fly in the hot air, it's thin. You know, you hear stories of helicopters going down, and now we're seeing the unmanned vehicles coming out. But I mean, that's all we have. If they can get on it quick enough, it's great. But it's almost like we don't have enough resources, and you know, it's a challenge. It really is.
Yeah. No, and as you're moving forward in this and doing deployments, I imagine you're seeing needs for new innovation along the way, and some of it might be different iterations of what you have, and then you might also be seeing the need for entirely different apparatus. What are you experiencing on that?
Yeah, there's a lot of new stuff coming out. I know the focus is fire smart, and it makes sense if you don't have your clutter around your home, you're going to minimize the risk. But once a fire gets in the canopy, it's in the canopy. Um, but fire smarting is a great tool, and you're seeing a lot of it uh, being practiced. I know from talking to fire people, if you can control the ground fire, you've got the fire 60% beat. But what about the other 40%? And that's what we're still seeing on TV. So, I mean, what happened in Jasper a couple of years ago was devastating. They had some protection, they saved what they could, but they couldn't save it all. And talking to a fire chief that we know, he said if we'd had 6 of your units, it would have been a different outcome. So that's encouraging to hear. So, I mean, we're just trying to complement the aerial attack and the municipal protection at the same time.
So when they look at you and they say, if we'd have had 6 of these, we could have had a different outcome. You say, okay, well, are you planning to buy 6 of them so you have them for next time?
Well, that comes down to the government, right?
Yeah.
They're the ones that are responsible for that. But we're hoping that the insurance agencies see what's coming in. The underwriters, like I said, they're losing revenue because they don't write policies anymore for different areas in the world. It's actually happening up here in Canada also. People didn't think it would ever happen, but you see what's going on in California. They can't even get home insurance. So what do? You resort to what's available, or if we can get the insurance to support us in some way for community protection, then it's a win-win for everybody all around.
Sure. And what are you seeing as a market demand between the need for mobile units that could be set up wherever and fixed installations that could just be mounted above your house or your business?
It depends who the customer is. Obviously, we're talking to a 700 home community right now, and they want to protect the conservation area around their location also. So there's a mixture of both, and we're into the automated part of it now. So, if you don't have to send somebody out into a wildland or whatever the factor is, um, you're minimizing the risk of human loss. So if you can automate stuff with sensors, which we have in our system with cameras, that helps. The mobile units, like we don't put the sensors with them, but we have sensors that'll feed data back to our team. So, and to the communities to alert them. Yeah. So it's a mixture of.
Is this system tied together yet, where the sensors can trigger the deployment?
The sensors, obviously, they can trigger the deployment. Obviously, they have cameras also that, there's some pretty good technology out there nowadays. So it'll work well together. The big thing is, you can turn it on, turn it off. This will also help even fire chiefs, with the cameras up top. They can actually monitor a fire from their desk if they had to. Usually they like to be out, in place to see what's going on because they got to deal with the team and stuff. But it's still accessible from a cell phone.
So they can watch. That's essentially like having a permanent drone. Right? You're
Yeah,
hovering it
pretty
on your.
much. Yeah, pretty much. It gives you a visual above the canopy, because obviously when we stand on the ground, we don't know what's happening out there because we can't see above it. And if you're able to provide that information or even the data on what's happening, temperatures, and what's your suppressant, how effective is it, or where should you focus on? Because you follow wind patterns and such thing, but every little area they might have a general wind idea or historical analysis of the weather patterns, but certain areas it could be different. And as we see now, the fire's getting so big, they're creating their own weather. So to be able to see what's going on, I think is a key benefit of Rainstream also.
Yeah. And when you deal with a massive fire, what do you do to minimize the fire's ability to just evaporate whatever you put down there and plow through it?
Interlock, hook them together so you're in a line, so you create that wall of defense.
Okay.
That's the key. That, just like the chief said, if we would have had 6, it would have been a different outcome for the Jasper fire. So, there's things that I thought about with all this from doing research. You could have an area that you want to protect, the fire might still go around it, which is fine. That if you protected what you protected, you did your job, right? But if you can actually stop the beast in its tracks, then, that's what we're aiming to do.
So for a community, do you think it's better? I guess better could be defined many different ways, but um, for a fire to go around it and burn off all that fuel, leaving the community now surrounded by a pre-burned area, which will provide a protection in the future,
Yeah.
versus stopping the fire, where you preserve the town, but you've left all the fuels in place around it, which would make it more vulnerable next time.
It comes down to how far away are they doing the prescribed burns, which is key. But we never know how far these embers are going to travel. There's records, um, that have been captured in data for how far these embers transplant depending on the rank of the fire. But different parts of the world offer different, um, perspectives, I guess. Maybe that's the wrong word. They have a different way of reacting. So if you look at Australia, there's oil in the eucalyptus bark. I come to learn there's over 200 eucalyptus species.
Wow.
But they get ember transplant that's like 20 miles.
Yep.
Up here we hear, 1 mile, 3 miles. I think it's even farther in area because when you get in that heat and that thing stays burning, it'll carry for a long ways. I remember my uncle telling me before he passed away, he had fought a couple fires and he had dozers and stuff where he would make fire breaks. And he was telling me that those embers in some areas, he said they were going 20 miles. This was in Canada. But
Yeah.
when you look at all the data, so, who do you want to believe, all the data or somebody that actually has lived it or lives in the area and has saw what happened? Because he was telling me he was fighting a fire that was like 30 miles from his place and they were getting spot fires 10 miles away, you know.
Yeah.
So it all depends on the wind, the temperature. Um, but I think for the most part, the average, I believe, is, like half a mile,
Okay.
couple
Well, I know
hundred
we've
feet.
seen up to 40-mile ember casts, which is
Yeah,
amazing. And,
that's
you know, yeah.
it's energy. It makes its own energy, and the bigger the fire get, now you see these what they call fire tornadoes, which is a tornado with flame in it. We saw that a couple years ago in the Okanagan again, um, when West Kelowna was under fire. There was candling 300 feet above the trees. So how do you take the energy out of that? I mean, in my research, I found if you take a drop of water, no matter what size it is, at room temperature, and you heat it to boiling temperature, the area expands 420 times.
Yep.
So now basically you're taking the oxygen at 420 times the size. So if you can soak an area and then the misting goes beyond that, and then you have the humidity, every little bit does its thing. When you get the heat of the fire coming into this misted area, I believe this is why I've created what I've done, is that you'll actually choke the fire. It'll suffocate itself because when a fire burns, it pulls the air in the bottom. I remember sitting around a campfire years ago, and it had the metal ring that come up, and you could see the smoke going up and around like that, and then the sparks go at the top. And I got thinking, man, that a forest fire's the same way. So if you can basically imitate rain from above, you're wetting the fuel from the top down, and gravity is going to take effect. And any wet or misting, it's going to suck that damp air into the fire and basically take the energy out, and suffocate it.
So it's using that energy to basically to convert the phase state from liquid to gas, which
That's right.
requires a lot of energy. It takes a lot of energy. So if you wet an area and then fire comes through, when the fire heats that, it's almost as if the fire is stepping on a landmine and blowing itself up, because
Pretty much.
it
Like,
generates that conversion to steam, which then snuffs oxygen and steals heat.
the biggest thing I remember as a kid being evacuated, and then I heard it throughout my life with everybody, or you hear it on the news. Oh, it's going to rain. We got a chance of rain. We got a chance of rain. Everybody's praying for rain. So I'm trying to create it from an
Yeah,
elevated point and
there's your
time it
marketing.
when you need it the most.
Your
Pardon me?
rain prayers answered.
Yeah. So basically, you know, yeah, yeah, this thing puts out 1,000 gallons a minute, but you're not going to have to continue spraying and spraying. You time it and target. So it's resourceful. It's environmentally friendly. I mean, the skill level to run the thing is low. I mean, you need pretty good skill set to use some of the equipment that's out there today. Anyways, try to keep it simple. I mean,
Yep.
that's the biggest thing, right? So
Yeah. And do you have a price point set yet for a basic module?
it depends on whether they want a max unit or a mini unit. We have mini units coming out now some of them are plug and play, pretty small, and some of them are like 50-foot mass you tow with a half ton, or what I like to call a fancy station wagon, the SUV.
Yeah.
So
And so
so
what do
there's
you,
it depends on, there's options that come with it. Like I said, cameras, weather stations, automation, it all changes the price.
okay. So an entry price would be ballpark.
Depends what they want. They want the super mini, the mini, they want the Volkswagen, the Cadillac, or the Porsche, right?
Well,
Everything has a
are they starting at 20,000, 50,000, 200,000?
like the big units.
Yeah,
Now I've got to convert. I think they're around 600 or 700 for the big one.
600 or 700,000
Yeah,
dollars. Okay.
Yeah,
So, yeah, that's a good investment.
I
And
think. I
hopefully
mean, what's a
good
home
investment.
worth? What's one home worth,
Right. Yeah,
right?
right. The disparity is
And
that
you,
the the fire department doesn't have to pay the loss on the home, but they have to pay for the protective equipment. Whereas the
yeah,
insurance company is the one actually paying for the loss. It would make
yeah.
sense for them to fund the mitigation effort.
I saw this really smoking cool ladder truck. I mean, you need them for rescue and that kind of thing. I see they're fit, and there's a lot of innovation that goes into one of them, and the price tag, some of them were like 3-4 million bucks now.
Yeah,
And I think for what we're offering is a pretty good bang for its buck, especially if you can protect 50 homes with one of them,
yeah,
and the
absolutely.
time it takes to set it up. Um, and it's safe. It's a small footprint. Um, there's no tripping hazards really. Uh, don't need a lot of room. So there's pros and cons to everything.
Sure.
But I saw more pros creating this than cons.
Absolutely.
Some people, I don't think I've had too many people say it's not going to work. I mean,
Right.
it's trying to make it rain, right? Trying to bring
Yeah.
rain.
Yeah, the mileage to cover is between people who say it's going to work and people who will write a check for it. And that
That's
seems to
right.
that's the hard road.
Yeah.
Well,
But if they look at the end result, like homes are worth a million or more, 700 grand, like that's the price of one house. If you total 50 houses, where's the value? Um, what's the insurance to protect those houses cost or
sure.
replacement? Like we look at the Horse River fire, which was the Fort McMurray fire in 2016. It was like 9.9 billion or something for that one fire. And we've got people up there now. We're dealing with the municipality that, they're interested. They've actually had another fire since then, 2 years ago, that they were under alert. So it's not like a tornado is going to hit you once or twice in your lifetime. It could be 4 or 5 or 6 times because everything grows back. So when you fire smart, you have to continue to fire smart. And what I've saw in talking to people in the fire smart is getting the people to be annually compliant of keeping their area more mitigated from fire um, is a challenge. Some people don't even want to do it, you know. Then there's some people say, let it burn. We'll just get another one. But they don't realize, their insurance goes up if they have insurance
Right.
and the downtime. The biggest thing is, the economic loss for business and all everything that comes with it. Like it's devastating. Like I'm glad that we came back to our memories. Many people don't get to come back to their memories. They lose their memories. It's heartbreaking. And if I can stop one heart from breaking, then I guess just like yourself, we're doing something right.
Absolutely. Don, I really appreciate you taking some time to explain the system and the current challenges in adoption. And I'm sure there's a lot of folks listening who can absolutely relate to the challenges you're facing right now.
Well, thanks, Steve, for letting me share my story. Getting it out there, that's how you get along, right? Like we're getting interest all over, and you know, it's almost like I'm sitting on a rocket ready to, you know, the fuse is lit. It's
Yep.
just a matter of when do you have to hold on.
Start
So,
holding on, Don.
yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. I've been
Yeah.
chatting with Don Hallett from Rainstream Wildfire Innovations in Canada. Don, if folks want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to find you?
Wild or our website, Wildfire Innov. That's Wildfire Igloo November October Victor.com. Info at.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Thank you so much, Don. Don Hallett from up in Canada, working on synthetic rain from towers and mobily deployable, easily usable units that pretty much anyone could use in short amount of training. Thanks so much for joining me. And thank you all so much for joining me again on the Fire Break. I'm Steve Wolf. We're sponsored by Team Wildfire. Till I see you next time, be safe out there. Take care.